Mauricio Ruffy tweeted out today that he is ready if Paddy Pimblett and Michael Chandler falls through to face either one of those guys at UFC 314 and step in the co-main event. Mauricio Ruffy just had a very impressive knockout victory over King Green at UFC 313. Be quite a fast turnaround, but it was a first round knockout. Ruffy essentially took zero shots in the fight, no damage. He can fight as soon as possible, which is great news for him, great news for the UFC, and he could be very active, it seems, in 2025. Ruffy's next fight will definitely be against a ranked opponent, you'd imagine, after beating King Green in that fashion. Knockout of the year 2025, spinning wheel kick, seems to be the foregone conclusion. It's going to be a very difficult knockout to top, as I mentioned earlier. But why tweet that? Why tweet that if that fight falls apart, I'm ready to step in? It could be the opportunity to be paid for being a backup fighter. Never hurts. Mauricio Ruffy will definitely be in the building cheering on Gene Silva and Carlos Prates, who will both be fighting on the main card of UFC 314. But fighters are often in the know about things. They know if guys are dealing with injuries, guys are struggling in their camp. And Paddy Pimblett, Michael Chandler, intriguing fight. Big moment for Paddy Pimblett, number 12 ranked fighter. Big opportunity for Paddy Pimblett to enter the top 10. And it's a good eyes on Paddy Pimblett moment. Two stars going at it. Paddy Pimblett fast track to the title with a win over Michael Chandler. Maybe one more fight away from a title shot in that situation. Michael Chandler, always going to get big fights. Michael Chandler's 1-4 in his last 5 fights in the UFC. Doesn't matter. He still gets these big co-main event spots. They love him. He's entertaining. He's a good fighter. He is a good fighter. He's just not an elite fighter. But is this fight a lock? Is it a sure thing? Michael Chandler doesn't back out of fights. We know that. But he is 39 years old in April. He'll be 39 in 2 weeks after this fight takes place. He's been in a lot of wars. He had a serious knee injury in November following UFC 309 against Charles Oliveira. Who knows how his body's holding up? Maybe there's some rumors going along. Paddy Pimblett, not the most active guy in the world. He almost pulled out of UFC 304 due to some personal issues. But neither of these guys, Chandler or Pimblett, have been particularly active since 2022. They have 3 fights between them since 2022. Well, since 2023. Since the conclusion of 2022, they have 3 fights between the two of them. Pimblett having 2 of those fights. Pimblett has fought in 2023, 2024, really fights once a year, typically. Paddy hasn't been too active since 2022. Michael Chandler waited forever for Conor McGregor to fight. That fight's never going to happen. But Chandler and Pimblett's an interesting fight. But I don't know if it is a guarantee. And, I don't know if there is really any doubt that this fight takes place behind the scenes. But you never know with these sort of things, right? I mean, Volk and Diego Lopez were talking about an interim title fight for months before Topuria vacated the belt and moved up to lightweight. And now this fight's happening in April, the main event of UFC 314. They were talking about this before Max and Ilya fought. Volk was talking about this being a possibility. Diego Lopez was there as a backup. And nothing really, there was no, the fight between Topuria and Holloway was never in jeopardy, but these guys tend to know things and tend to say, hey, I'll step up and be the backup. And it's a great opportunity for the fighting nerds if they got their three of their four main guys on the same card, main card of a pay-per-view. A really interesting pay-per-view. One of the deeper pay-per-views we've seen in 2025 to this point. Is Ruffy up to the task being an unranked guy fighting the likes of Michael Chandler or Paddy Pimblett? And I mean, it's Paddy Pimblett. It's an intriguing fight, but the UFC doesn't really tend to pit their faster rising stars up against each other. Paddy Pimblett has the opportunity to be a pretty big star for the UFC. Seems like we've been talking about that for 3 years now, not longer. Mauricio Ruffy, following that spinning wheel kick KO, what he's done in his 3 fights in the UFC, what he did in the Dana White Contender Series, defeating one of Islam Makhachev's top training partners in the fashion that he beat him in, and just how technical his striking seems to be, and how unpredictable his striking seems to be in the way he moves, reminiscent of Conor McGregor. Mauricio Ruffy could be the biggest future star of them all for the UFC, the biggest star in the fighting nerds. Caio Bahaio is saying that he is the most talented mixed martial artist he has ever seen. Watch Mauricio Ruffy fight, you can see why someone would say that. It's a very talented individual. What the future holds, I'm not sure. Whether this fight takes place between Chandler and Pimblett, I'm not sure. Whether Mauricio Ruffy is the guy that the UFC gives the call to be the backup fighter and to step in, I'm not sure. This is all speculation here from me. But Mauricio Ruffy did repost something on his Instagram story. It was from a Brazil media outlet. It was in Portuguese, but it did say, does Mauricio Ruffy know something that we don't? And that's what the translation said. Does he know something we don't? He reposted that. Maybe he does know something we don't. Paddy Pimblett almost didn't fight at UFC 304. There are rumors that Michael Chandler was going to be pulling out of UFC 309. Michael Chandler says he doesn't really pull out of fights. He doesn't. He's a pretty consistent guy. He does seem a guy to be true to his word. I don't know what's going to happen. It's just speculation on my part, but wouldn't that be interesting? And I want to hear from you guys in the comments whether you think Mauricio Ruffy is up to the challenge to be a replacement fighter for Chandler and Pimblett at UFC 314. It's pretty fast. He's an unranked fighter. Do you want to see him step up in competition so soon? The UFC builds their guys up rather well, but there is a star problem going on in the UFC. The lack of new stars. Mauricio Ruffy seems to be a guy who can be a part of that next generation of superstars for the UFC. Why not have him be active? Why not give him bigger competition sooner? Look at what Paul Hughes has done in the PFL. You could say the competition in the PFL isn't as great as the UFC. AJ McKee would be a top lightweight in the UFC. Usman Nurmagomedov would be a top lightweight in the UFC as well. And Paul Hughes beat AJ McKee and took Nurmagomedov to the brink. I think he beat him still. It's an interesting fight, Pimblett and Chandler. But would you rather see Ruffy and Pimblett? Would you rather see Ruffy and Chandler? Would you rather see a new star be built in this time where we're asking for more stars in the UFC? Because I think Mauricio Ruffy will be the biggest star of the fighting nerds. I think Caio Bahayo and Gene Silva are in that conversation as well. I mean, all four of them are, right? Carlos Prates could be the biggest star for all I know. All four have the capability. I think Mauricio Ruffy has so much talent, and so much skill, and such great striking. And we like to see great strikers. I think it will be him, and I think getting him that opportunity. He asked for Beneil Dariush. Beneil Dariush didn't seem overly interested. That's not something that Beneil Dariush should take. He should be. He's on the older side. He's ranked number 9. He should be trying to face guys ahead of him to get to the title, not guys behind him and be a gatekeeper figure. It's not a great fight Paddy Pimblett to take as he's trying to get closer to the title. But Michael Chandler, on the other hand, is 1-4. How many opportunities can you give him? He can be that gatekeeper sort of guy. Ruffy and Chandler, that's an interesting fight because Chandler is still really dynamic, really dangerous. He has given Justin Gaethje, Charles Oliveira, and Dustin Poirier trouble, but the elites beat him every time because Michael Chandler isn't an elite lightweight. He's a dangerous one. He's a fun one to watch, but he's not an elite lightweight. And that's why he could be giving these gatekeeper opportunities, like with Paddy Pimblett, like with Mauricio Ruffy. I really want to know what you guys think in the comments about Mauricio Ruffy being ready for that co-main event spot. UFC 314, regardless of Ruffy's presence or not, is the Fighting Nerds card with Gene Silva and Carlos Prates sharing the card in the main card slots against likes of Silva and Bryce Mitchell, Carlos Prates with Jeff Neal. Interesting fights, regardless. I want to know, do you think is anything to my speculation here? Am I just speculating? Is there stuff going on behind the scenes? I don't know. But it would be interesting to see Ruffy in that spot. Yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below again. And drop your predictions for Chandler and Pimblett. Please like and subscribe to the Interim Title Show. You can follow us on Instagram at Interim Title Show. Thank you as always for watching.